I don't know, man. Shakur, why you do this? Listen, Ego thought I'm back. Now, I seen that Joshua Padley retired from his job as an electrician. Good on him. After several years, he said he's been doing it since he was 17. He's 29, I think, right around there. After fighting Shakur Stevenson, he says he could focus all his energy on boxing. He did take a loss, an incurred loss. Then today, I seen that Padley gets signed to Eddie Hearn in Matchroom. So I was like, cool. Didn't think much of it. But then my brain started to churn. And I said, hold on. Wait, come on, Ego. Get in your bag, Ego. And the content creator in me said, I got to make an Ego Thoughts video about this. Not that he got signed, because to me, I'm American. The bulk of my audience is in America. I do have a lot of UK fans, though. But that's not big news to us, most of my audience. Fair play to Padley. But I started to think, and Ego Thoughts, I told you, where I want to talk about stuff I want to talk about. It's not what other people are talking about, what's being reported, just personal things that I want to talk about. I told you I was going to give you guys that content. Now, what I was thinking about, at first, like I said, I didn't think much of it. He got signed after that performance. But I thought about it. I'm like, yo, he got stopped by Shakur Stevenson and gets signed. So for me, what does that entail? That entails that the powers that be, Eddie Hearn, the promoter, they, all things considered, liked enough of what they seen in a losing effort to want to present the person with a contract. So a lot of the Shakurs, the diehard Shakur Stevenson fans, when I was making content like, hey, I wasn't too impressed with how he beat the Electrician. It took long. You guys were crying like, oh, Ego, he knocked him out. What more do you want from me? He got a knockout. This is what you said you guys wanted. First of all, I never cared if Shakur got a knockout or not. Shakur himself kept saying he was going to knock people out, so I held him to that. But I know he doesn't have much power, so I didn't put that pressure on him. He did. Context matters, people. So that's the first thing to the people who are exclaiming and crying, why do you guys just want knockouts? Not everyone's a knockout artist. Well, then you shouldn't talk like a knockout artist if you're not one. Very easy fix here. So Shakur, in his last few fights, pretty much since fans been slamming him in the Edwin De Los Santos fight, he created this problem because he kept talking about knockouts. If you're not a knockout artist, I'm going to say it again. If you're not a knockout artist, then perhaps don't talk like you're one. And, in the buildup, say, I'm going to beat you, I'm going to outpoint you, that type of things. Or just say less and do your talking in the ring. The choice is yours. But what does this mean? Like, they gave him a contract after the performance. Because for me, the way I interpret it is, if you got beat up and battered and all things considered, it was an abysmal performance. We've seen so many guys, similar situations where they were brought in on late terms and they just got cooked. They were no match. But to get signed to a promotional deal afterwards, that means you did all right. That's what I would imagine. You did pretty well, all things considered. I firmly told you guys that I believe Padley would have went 12 rounds. He looked durable. And perhaps the promoter seen these things. Had he been given the proper camp, then he probably would have went 12. I mean, he went 9 rounds with no camp. So I would like to think that a guy who actually trained for a fight would fare a little bit better, because you would do some road work. Your core would be strong. You got rounds in from sparring. I would imagine the more prepped you are, the more effortless or the better the result would typically be. I can't think of many situations in life where if you prepare less, it'll garner much better results than if you give it the proper prep time. So I'm not mad at it. Congrats to Padley, but it got me thinking, this is why Shakur has been, I guess ridiculed or whatever for this performance, because off the back of you, a guy's getting signed. If Tank Davis, be real with yourself and let me know in the comment section, if Gervonta Davis fought the same Padley, for me, he would get abused, battered, and it would end catastrophically. If the situation was exactly the same, no time to prep, Tank is going to body bag him, right? And it got me to thinking, if Tank fought this Padley dude, I don't think there would have been the giving of contract, because I think he might even be damaged goods. No time to prepare for a guy like Tank. When guys fight like Tank, like Rolly, or a guy like even Frank Martin, they start taking some time off. Padley's doing interviews. He sounds clear-minded. He's articulating himself well. He says Shakur don't really have that much power, but the body shots were vulnerable because he had no camp. He sounds perfectly fine. He's doing interviews like normal. This is why people are criticizing Shakur Stevenson, because a lot of other fighters in the same predicament, your opponent would have probably been hurt a lot more, especially a guy like Tank. Remember when Abner Mares pulled out with an eye injury and they had to get a late replacement, a guy named Hugo Ruiz? There were celebrities like Drake and Birdman and all these guys in the crowd. You had Odell Beckham was there. He destroyed him in like one round, and we never heard from dude again, like at the high level, right? Because he got cooked so bad, right? So imagine fighting like the Hugo Ruiz, same situation. Abner Mares pulled out, eye injury, detached retina, whatever. And Hugo Ruiz having such a decent showing with all things considered that PBC said, this guy could fight. We still see the potential. Here's a contract. But instead, he was almost like a sacrificial lamb who was brought in to see what he could do. He didn't do much. So, he kind of goes back to the back of the queue. Meanwhile, Padley gave it his all, and the world seen it, that he was trying and been like, all right, with a full camp, he might be all right. So that's why it looks bad for Shakur Stevenson. Chut.